Hey guys, Kid here. As you can see, we have Kantai right here. I'm gonna be showing a little brew that I've been working with. Right now, this is a pretty solid build I came up with. I had some help with from June and Lance and stuff from Kira Cards. But I'm just gonna show off the current build I'm working with and tell you a little bit more about it. I played the first version of this build in a tournament and did very poorly. I'm not sure if it was like completely the build's fault, more of me forgetting certain triggers and like screwing and misplaying a lot. But definitely there was some problems with that version, and so I changed it around a little bit, and then went to another tournament and was able to go 4-0 in that tournament at Kira, and seemed to work really well there. There's still some changes I want to make, but I'm not sure what to cut or what to move around at all right now, so I'll probably show off that version later whenever I figure it out. But right now, for those people who like have no idea where to go with Kantai, I'll show you my current version I'm running with and show off like this brew I have going here. First off, this deck is green, yellow, red. It's mostly green and just has splash red, splash yellow, basically for some certain cards, but we'll just get into it and I'll talk a little bit more about the deck. So first off, we just have 4 Suiciders here. Honestly, I don't really care about this card in this deck. It's mostly there for color, and occasionally if there's actually something at 0 I can't kill, which is very unlikely in this deck. This take care of it most of the time, but right now it's just basically there for color since we need the splash for red. Next, this is probably the best beater in Kantai. It's a 4K beater when it's alone, and then it has a secondary ability of when it comes into play, for every card on your opponent's side of the field, it gains 500. So there are times where you'll throw one of these down, your opponent will respond and play like say 3 characters to like outpower this, say 2 supports and then whatever to beat it, or even if they just throw a 2K1 on a support character or something, and they kill your 4K guy. That doesn't really matter because then you just end up playing another one of these for like 5K or 1500, or not 5K, 1500, 5.5 just randomly and just killing their stuff. And this card also still stays relevant at level 1 and against other level 1s just because of the 2500 power it can get when your opponent has a full field. And then in combination with like a 1K1 climax or something like that, it's just like 5/5 and supports and makes it 6K for 1 turn. So this card is like pretty insane. Honestly, this is probably the best beater level 0 in Kantai. I haven't seen anything else worthwhile, but I still haven't like experimented with all the cards. So yeah. Next, we have a card that everyone's like pretty much going crazy about, I guess. I think this is the card that pretty much defines Kantai. Before the set when it was being released, the spoils for the set, there was just like a lot of really good stuff, but it was really spread out, and some people were like, oh my god, the set's OP and stuff. I didn't really think that much, but I think it just had a lot of like really solid cards. And then this card got spoiled. This is the 0/0 support anti-salvager. It gives global 500 to all your ship girl characters, and then the second effect, which is pretty insane, is whenever a card or character card goes from waiting room to hand during the attack step, all your characters or your opponent characters get -3 soul, and so it's basically a negative for both of you. It's like deterrent. Makes this a deterrent to actually run 8 gates in most decks nowadays. Just because this card exists, whenever you make a deck, you have to think about this card and like how popular Kantai is in your area. I bet you in Japan right now they're like changing a lot of deck structure just because this card exists and that. And Kantai is pretty popular in Japan. It was like one of the most highest selling boosters they had. But yeah, this card just I think pretty much defines Kantai right now because it's possibly like the reason you play Kantai. All the other cards are really good, but it's like nothing too special. For the most part, there are some silly level 3s though, but anyway, yeah, we have the 3 of these supports anti-salvagers that are pretty insane. Next, we run 3 brainstorms. They're the pay 1 tap mill 4 for every climax you hit. Take a card from your clock, add it to hand, then take the top card of your deck and put it to clock. This is like one of my favorite brainstorms just because I can randomly grab event cards and stuff, which this deck does run, and it just lets you like grab climaxes too, which can randomly be like relevant when you realize oh, I need that gate I clocked earlier or something, and just play it. Also, randomly it could fix your color problem, but that's hardly ever came up really. But yeah, just a really solid brainstorm, and one of the few ways to plus with this set without like hurting yourself because of this support that minuses you soul, since you can't run 8 gates. Next we have 3 of these Hibiki. These are the anti-healer. On reverse they go to memory. You pay 1 of course, and it goes to memory and changes into a 1/0. And when this is in memory, anytime a card goes from clock to waiting room by a player effect, that player has to pay 2 stock, otherwise they take the top card of the deck and add it to clock. Basically, this is the anti-healer of the set. It's a pretty good anti-healer just because it changes into a 1/0 that gets above average power. But this card's like a double-edged sword now, because the older sets like Little Busters and Rewrite, they could play around their own anti-healer by playing over it and stuff and then re-salvaging it and then replaying it. But now, because it seems like Bushiroad is pushing all the anti-healers to memory now, this can actually like totally hurt yourself if you play them early and stuff, and usually you only want to send 1 to memory for the effect. Otherwise, it's just like a dead card, kind of. I don't know like right now how everyone else is playing it, but usually, depending on the matchup, I'll just wait to play this later on sometimes. Sometimes I'll play it earlier just to get like that extra lead with the 1/0 out at level 0. But for the most part, like the way this deck's currently built, doesn't get hurt much by this effect in memory, but I can see later on other sets like that can randomly be hurt by this. But right now it's not really a problem for this deck. But yeah, it's just too bad you can't play around your own anti-healer. Next we're moving on to the level 1 game. This is the change target to the 0/0 anti-healer Hibiki. Basically, it's a 105k, but if you have the other card in memory, it gains 1k, so it's just 106k. It's 500 over average, and it's like pretty easy condition to make, and it's great when you change into it because you have a 106k at level 0 that could just plus you hand for a while, prevent you from like actually cocking yourself away sometimes and stuff like that. But otherwise, just a solid 1/0 to play. I don't think there's any like other super great 1/0s like as far as like power and like plussing goes, other than there's some other 1/0 yellows and stuff that I think are really great. But since this set revolves mostly around green, this is probably your best 1/0 to play. Next we have 4 of these Ubadi, I think it is. This card is like pretty good. When it first got released, I think a lot of people were going like shedding bricks over this card. After I got to play with it for a while, I don't think it's that amazing, but it's still really good. This is another type of card that I like with an effect that I really like, because your opponent can misplay into this card because it has 4 abilities. I had to explain them all before you can understand how people get misplay against it. But the first ability is if you have 1 or less climaxes in your waiting, you can't play this card from hand, which is not that much of a demerit unless you just refresh. So you always have to remember to play these before you refresh if you plan to play them or have a bunch in your hand. Second ability is if you have 4 or more stock, it gains 1000. So it's so the way the deck plays, you don't really spend that much stock all the time. So this should always be 117k vanilla at level 1, which is really good. The next ability it has is if you're level 2 or higher, it gains 1500 power. So it becomes a 1185, which is A5 is the vanilla power for 2 1s. So this becomes vanilla power at level 2, which is really good. And like I said earlier, your opponent can randomly misplay into this card by attacking here, hitting you to level 2, and it gains the power. Then the cards fight each other, and they think you're only 7k, and then now randomly you're 8-5, and they just like lost the character for no reason, which is really good. And then the last ability is whenever a card goes from waiting your opponent's waiting room into their hand, or a character card that is, you can give something 2000 power. So this is like also kind of like a support, kind of just like a beater and everything. But yeah, this card's like pretty good. At first I think everyone was going crazy over it, but after I got some playtime with it, I think it's just a above average level 1. It helps you like run less level 2s, which is pretty good in this deck because of the level 3 game. But yeah, this card you want to usually play later into level 1 because you want them to hopefully misplay into fighting this card. And whenever you can, you just rather play 1-0 Hibikis and stuff. Or there's another name in Russian, but yeah, the 1-0 change target because save stock that way, unless you have to pay some stock out and stuff like that. Otherwise, great card. Always like a vanilla, basically. Next, we have some utility at level 1. This is the only pay 1 discard a card searcher that the set has, which is sad that it kind of forces you to run yellow, but in this version we do run yellow because of some pretty ridiculous cards yellow has. But the second effect is when this goes to waiting room, you can pay 2. It goes from field to waiting room. You can pay 2 to change into 2-1-7-5 that has that gains decent power during your turn. But besides that, we just kind of use it as a searcher and to get rid of climaxes and things like that. And randomly, you do change sometimes, but it's usually not a concern for you. It's just like there if it happens to go off and you need it. Finally, we have 2 1-0-1500 vanilla vanilla counters. They're just there to like kind of scare your opponent a little bit and make your 1-1 like randomly a little bit bigger so that you don't have to worry, or they're 1-0-6Ks. But yeah, just randomly save your character or something. Next, we have 3 of this 1-1 Compass event. This is probably the another reason you'd like one of the reasons you run yellow in this set is like this Compass event is pretty silly. There's some things you can do with it, but first off, the ability is pay 1 and then mill the top 3 cards of your deck. If there's a climax card within those 3 cards, then let me see if it's ability. Yeah, your opponent's battling character gains the following ability where they can't deal player damage. So what happens is, like, say they swing for like 2 or something, and you play this event, you mill a climax combo now, or climax card, and now their card deals 0 damage to you, which is great. And it also stops cards from like on reverse opponent burns 1 or something like that. That stops that also because the card itself can't deal damage to you. So it stops things like that, which is really good. Of course, it doesn't stop things that happened beforehand because on declaration of attack, climax combos and that burn and stuff, it won't stop it because they do the ability before you can play this counter. But what's great about this counter is the only time it's ever bad to play this counter is if you mill more than like 1 climax. That's like the only possible outcome where this card was a bad play, but like, you know, sometimes you just can't help it. What's great about this card too is when you have no climaxes left in your deck, you can do this and mill potentially 2 damage because like the downside to running using this card is that if you whiff, this card has to go on top of your deck, and if that happens, then you know it's like 1 guaranteed damage they have, but usually it's like not that big of a deal because you're going to take more damage anyway. But like I said, you can mill 2 damage out of your deck because of this. And then really cool play with this card, I'll explain later, is you can force refresh your deck and like make sure to never burn a climax with this card. Alright, the level 2 game, which is like almost nothing, is the change target to the 1-0 searcher. Basically, this card is for every other ship girl that attacks. This gains 1,000, and then the second ability is tap a ship girl, give it 1,000. So this can become what's it called? 11-5 base, or not 11-5 base, but become 11-5 with no support as long as you like tap and attack class with this. So this can randomly kill like early level 3 changes and stuff like that, or just kill really big things and stuff like that. Or if you play it to like stop 1-0 suiciders. But besides that, it's hardly ever played. I'm actually thinking of cutting this card completely from my deck, but I haven't had time to really go through this deck and playtest it more to figure out what I'm going to cut. But this is probably one of the cards I will be cutting, depending on what I feel after like maybe like 10 or 15 more games playing with this version of the deck. But yeah, that's basically your level 2 game. Next, the thing about this deck that is the most scary is its level 3 game. First off, Musashi. She's my favorite ship from Kantai. So I like had to run her no matter what, and I was really glad that she had a really good climax, or not climax combo, really good abilities. First off, I think this is like the first level 3 that has like 1100 power as its base. I'm not completely sure because I don't play for every set, but as far as I know, this is the first time I've seen 1100 as a number for level 3. But the first ability is it can't side attack, which is like the demerit for having 1000 extra power, which isn't like that bad. And then the second ability is when this card's played, if the damage dealt by this card is cancelled, you can mill the top card of your deck and deal that the level of that card +1 as damage to your opponent if your opponent canceled the damage of this card. This ability is pretty crazy. There's been a game, 1 or 2 games, where I attack with this and my opponent's at 3/3. I randomly mill level 3, deal 4, and they die, which is pretty cool. Sometimes when that happens, it doesn't happen that often because of how the deck is built. It's usually you're doing 1 or 2 damage, which is mostly what you want out of this card. Sometimes hitting for 3 or 4, hitting for 3 or 4 is like pretty scary with this card, especially when you're just trying to end the game and want to deal as little damage as possible to like end the game without having them cancel. So the way the deck is built right now, you basically always do 1 or 2 damage at most. Sometimes you do hit the random 3 or 4, but usually you can figure out if you're going to do that or not by like counting where your level 3s are and the random and the 2/1 subs or whatever. Besides that, this game's basically used to end the game, and yeah, it'd be very annoying on the field with that 1100 base power. Next, we run the 3/2 Congo. This is probably one of my favorite like level 3 abilities in the set. It's pretty crazy. I can't believe it was printed like this. Well, first off, it has 8/5 power because of how crazy the abilities are, and you want to like make sure there's some kind of balance with this, but still, even though it's still a really, really good card. So first off, when this card comes from hand to field, it gains the following ability, which is if you reverse your opponent, you can salvage 2 cards. So as soon as you play this card, you've already +1 as long as there's something for you to kill. And usually there's something for you to kill because the later it gets into Kantai, usually there isn't a lot of power towards level 2, and sometimes you have some level 1 that's like really, really weak compared to your opponent's field. So they're always going to have something there for the most part. I haven't ran into a game where I couldn't reverse something with this card yet, but yeah, just you just +1 for killing something, which is pretty insane. The second ability has a climax combo with the gate, which is on attack your opponent burns 1, and also this card gains 3000 power until end of turn. Most of the times I play this card, it's usually with the climax combo because the deck right now is built really, really aggressively because you have the anti-healer and the anti-salvage and stuff. So you want to like just push your opponent as hard as you can go, and the 3000 power helps a ton to like reverse things that are obviously bigger than 8/5 because there's a lot of things that are bigger than 8/5. But yeah, usually with the climax combo you can reverse whatever you want, like whatever. And then the next ability is during your encore step, it's change. If you put this card into waiting room, it changes into the Kai 2 version of Congo, which is basically, this card is like Sayaka from Madoka, if you ever played Madoka or like have the deck or whatever. For every ship girl, it gains 500, so it's like 12k base if you have a full field. And the next ability is kind of weird how it's worded, but if this dies, you can pay 1, I believe. Its ability. This card also has heal, which is pretty relevant for the change, but also has discard 1 hand, and then when this card gets reversed, you can rest it. But then at your next encore step, it goes to waiting room, I believe. And yeah, at the start of your next encore step, this card goes to waiting room, and that's about it for its abilities. It's just there for like random healing you will need, because eventually you have to heal once or twice to be able to win the game in certain matchups or like in situations where you totally get screwed. But besides that, it's just like a really big beater at level 3 for you to have. And then finally, we have the climaxes here. Run 4 of the Congo Gate for the climax combo, which is pretty important. And then we just run 4 gold bar. It doesn't really matter which gold bar you run. I run 2 and 2 just because of the picture. But you use the gold bar to plus hand and play climax basically almost every turn because you're just trying to push your opponent to in-game. And it's one of the few ways you can plus without like screwing yourself over with the -3 sold all your characters from the anti-salvager. Alright, I'm going to talk a little bit about some cool interactions with this deck right now. I guess first off we'll talk about the anti-salvager, where during your attack step, if either player like salvages a card during attack step, then all their characters gain -3 soul. This card is not really played that often early game, but if you do, it's actually in some cases really good because Kantai has such a good level 0 game, or at least this version does, that when you play this early, there's a lot of times you'll hit gate or something, and you'll just choose to salvage and do 0 damage to your opponent because it keeps them at 0 longer, and it doesn't really hurt you that often, especially if that attack is gonna hit them to 1 or something. It's just like you don't really care at that point because you're just gonna +1 card and they're stuck at 0 for longer. This card too is pretty annoying because you have to remember that it triggers even on climax combos and stuff like that. Only climax combos that happen during attack, not ones where it's like as soon as you play the climax combo, because it's not attack step yet. You got to remember that. And there are times where if you're not careful, you will misplay and salvage for something using, for instance, like using Kongo's ability, and then end up like giving your entire field -6 soul, which it could screw you over. It did screw me over one game because I totally forgot I played this. And besides that, it's a really cool. Really cool card for this set because you want to be as aggressive as possible and also stop your opponent from plussing randomly, which is like really good. So and also because you run anti-healer, so you just want to mitigate as much damage as you can sometimes, just so you can get a small lead as far as like damage wise, and then your opponent is like in a really tough spot. But a cool interaction actually with this card is the reason I run Kongo is because her salvage ability, you have to reverse something to do Kongo's salvage ability. So what happens here is you play a Kongo or whatever in a Musashi or something, and you attack last with this when you have this on the field. So what happens is the soul damage goes through, then the ability goes off because the battle already happened, and so the -6 soul this generates doesn't affect you at all. And then like that's like one way to work around this ability, which is like really cool. And then at the same time, Kongo actually goes around the anti-healer ability too, because what's really unique about Kongo is that her change happens at Encore Step and it's completely free. You just put the card into waiting room. So what happens is a lot of times, say you're at like 3 stock and you can only play Kongo in the climax combo, right? You do it and then you attack with all your guys and salvage 2 cards and you're at 4 stock. So now you can put this into waiting room, change into the 3/3 and pay 2 to heal for that. So like no matter what, as long as you attack that turn with like 2 or more characters, you're gonna have the stock to heal if you need to, which is like I think one of the cool interactions with that Kongo has with the anti-healer and the anti-salvager. It just kind of like gets around them both, because usually when you play a heal you have to pay out 4 stock right then or whatever or something like that to get the heal off, where this you can just wait a little longer and then do it. I think that's why Kongo like works very well in this deck, and it's probably one of my favorite level 3s besides Musashi. Alright, and then I'm going to talk about some cool tricks you can do with the compass here. As I said earlier, there's a way to make sure that you'll never burn a climax for refresh damage, but it's pretty weird how to set it up. But basically, say you have like 3 or less cards left in your deck, and there's no climax in there or something. Your opponent attacks, you play this. Because it's an event, it's still in resolution zone, so this card won't shuffle back in. You brainstorm 3. Now these 3 cards are in resolution zone 2. At that moment, you're out of cards in your deck. You have to refresh. You end up refreshing, right? You put the cards into waiting room, and then at that point, you have to finish this ability. If I'm doing this correctly, I might not be doing this correctly. I have to 100% make sure. But if it works like Brainstormers, which it should since it has the keyword Brainstorm on here, is you have to finish resolving this ability before you take burn damage, because burn damage isn't interrupt speed, only the refresh is. So you put this into waiting room and then you top deck this, then you take burn damage, which is going to be this card. And a really cool trick about that too is not only does it prevent you from burning a climax, you can also brainstorm the very next turn, or and then like get this back. This is probably one of the best counters in the deck, basically, because power isn't really a big thing about this version of the deck. But yeah, like that's like one of the cool tricks you can do with this. It works also if you have 1 or 2 cards left in your deck, but you have to use it at that moment. And yeah, just like prevents you from, you know, top deck climax burn and it gets so sad and stuff like that. Instead, you just like saved yourself 1 and then possibly get this back with the Brainstormer. And I know I talked about this earlier, but I'll talk about it a little bit again. People can misplay into this card. The only weakness this card has is it dies to the level 1 Suiciders, which kind of sucks, but isn't really a big deal. But basically, like if you're at 1-5 or 1-6 and your opponent front attacks this, and then you take the damage and level up, it's suddenly 8-5, and you know they thought it was 7k and they were only like 7-5, and you know they just lose a character for like not paying attention. That's one of the cool things about this card. Besides that, like you do have to pay attention to your waiting room. Make sure early game you clock a climax or 2, or like, you know, mill out or do a brainstorm or something, and to make sure you have 2 climaxes in there. It shouldn't almost never be a problem. Only as soon after you refresh this card can become a problem being played. But besides that, I don't think there's anything too special about this deck besides that. Anything else interesting? Not really. Those are like just some of the cool ways the deck interacts with itself and how cards in this deck can work together. Besides that, though, talk a little bit more about Kantai. Overall, the set, I think a lot of people with the spoilers thought the set was going to be pretty crazy. In the end, it just like, as far as like I think a lot of us around my scene were like pretty indifferent about Kantai. It's like it's a good set, but it's not like stupid, retarded OP like I think some people thought it was going to be. But besides that, yeah, this is the current yellow, green, red like brew I'm going with right now. I'm still trying to figure it out. So like I said in the beginning, this probably isn't like the best deck to play, or like the best version of the deck to play, but I think it's a super solid set, or super solid version right now. And I'm planning to make some changes. I haven't really figured out what. Maybe you guys can comment below, tell me what you think. But besides that, yep, this is just like a really aggressive Kantai deck that I'm having a lot of fun playing with right now. And hopefully I can put some more results with this deck out there besides like one shop tournament, which doesn't really prove shit. But hopefully pretty soon you can see I'll post up another video with a new version, or maybe just like talk more about this version if it keeps doing so well. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully for those who are kind of stuck on Kantai and don't know what to really build with it, because there's so many good cards in this set, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be like 2 or 3 really good versions for Kantai out there. Like, but hopefully this like kind of gets you started, like figure out like, oh, this, yeah, some cool interactions here. Maybe we'll try it out. Maybe you'll play it in your tournament or something like that. But hopefully you guys come up with something. Maybe comment below or something about your version of the deck, and talk about some like cool interactions it might have or something like that. But right now, this is my version of the deck right now. I don't really have a name for it or anything yet, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you'd enjoyed this, and yeah, see you next time.